there will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Listening to different podcasts, like in a whole different reality, which they think completely different things about Bitcoin.
They have got my money in their banking system. I should be able to access it, right?
Apple is live.
There's a good number of fucking, like, pretty smart Bcashers.
All right, hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 152, BitCANN and BCH Dev Acceleration, featuring Kuldeep, aka Kiok. Today is Saturday, the 7th of June, 2025. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing, same as always. Quick check on the price. BCH is at $408.92 US cents. One BTC sat buys 258.6 BCH sats, and one ETH is 614.9 megasats. So we're flat on all the ratios there. Haven't gone up or down the last couple of weeks. Selene 30 days, 551 users, down a little, and the Tokenaut TVL is at 10,973 BCH. Right, on the show today, we have Kuldeep, aka Kiok, the BitCANN inventor and Zapit CTO. Welcome to the show, Kuldeep. How'd you get into Bitcoin?
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me. Namaste. So,
Namaste.
You gotta do it mandatory. So it was back in 2017 when I graduated from my college, and at the end of 2017, when I was in my first job, it had been only a couple of months since I joined there. One of my friends who was already digging in deep into Bitcoin, Ethereum, 0x protocol, and he got me into it. Only within 2 weeks span or something, I got really hooked into everything that Bitcoin was promising itself to be. It introduced a way for me to figure out, it was introducing new questions for me, like what is money, how does all this even work? Like in colleges or in schools in India, they don't teach about finances. That's true for a lot of other countries as well. So this was like a completely different paradigm shift for me. And after 2 months, I resigned from my company and I went all in. That was the first phase. And just a few months afterwards, I started to invest. I invested in Bitcoin. In a week or two, it doubled. I sold it. I bought my first phone with it. And that was a reassurance that what I'm doing is actually correct. So that's my story.
So that was in 2017. So that would have been during the sort of peak of the block size wars, the split to BCH, and then the turbulence afterwards with BCH, SegWit 2x falling apart, the price spiking, like you mentioned. So how was that coming in at that time?
I was completely ignorant of all that because I was just a graduate at that time, right? Only two years or so worth of experience, even with computers, 2-3 years of experience. So I was a front-end engineer where I was working. So with BCH, it took me about 1.5 more year because I was completely focused on 0x protocol, building relayers. The first techs from India, that's what we claimed. So I also invested in Ethereum. I was completely focused on Ethereum side. I didn't know anything about BCH, to be honest. But then since my curiosity kept on going, it's like reading a novel where it just keeps on getting interesting. And that's when I got introduced to BCH along one of those days. And then, of course, it just made sense to me that everything that BCH is, that we see that from technical perspective, BCH is far more superior now as compared to what BTC is doing. Clearly, at that time, I would like to give credit to my past self that it made the right choice, at least from a technical perspective, to pick a chain to work on. That was BCH.
And so you somehow came into BCH in like 2019-ish and somehow dodged all of the propaganda, or how did you get to the bottom of that? Because now there's a lot better information available in terms of hijacking Bitcoin with this show, with a lot of those narratives have all died off and stuff. But it's very rare actually for somebody to come in 2017 who didn't immediately, find themselves on one side or the other, and then still kind of gravitate to BCH. That strikes me as quite unusual. How did that happen?
It was I just wanted to see the reason for the split. I started to follow Andreas and Roger Ver at that time. So Roger Ver, of course, he was the main proponent of BCH, was the main spokesperson at that time. And I saw a couple of videos where at that time I was like, they are saying this, that the transaction fees is going up. It obviously made sense to me that you have to increase the block size in order to accommodate more transactions, so it's possible for more people to transact over the world. For that time, there was no concept of store of value as well, so I was completely confused at that time. Why are they even opting for something that is going to choke the chain in the first place? But then, of course, that was the first point where I started my interest for BCH. Then I started digging it. And of course, there's not too much censorship. Of course, there is. If you're just gonna not let the other party speak itself, there's no way you can hear any dialogues from the other side. But I guess it was not 100% foolproof, and I was able to figure out quite a bit.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people, like you say, it's not like there's ever been a point where it's literally been impossible to find out about BCH and get to the bottom of it. But because it's so fragmented, it's so scattered around all the different places, there's so many different people involved. People are already confused at the start about what is Bitcoin, what is blockchains. I guess you already had a strong enough technical understanding that you were not caught up in worrying about confusing about that. What is splits? People don't know any of this stuff, right? So on top of that, they usually just tend to gravitate to, well, most people are saying this, so that's kind of correct. It actually takes quite a lot of insight to reason through it and get to the other side. And if you were thinking about Ethereum, then that also is quite unusual, because a lot of people jumped on Ethereum, they're still on Ethereum, and they still think Ethereum is the best, and they're still doing EVM chains and such. What was it that differentiated BCH or made you kind of want to focus in that area instead of EVM, which has still had amazing success in the last few years?
Quite a good question. So I think I didn't let myself be moved by the number go up that was happening everywhere. It was happening with Ethereum as well. I used Ethereum for my investment perspective because that was also going full swing at that time. That was the ICO bubble, the great ICO bubble was happening around 2017, 2018, 2019. Again, as I said, I also worked with Lightning Network as well. I worked with Ethereum, the 0x protocol. We also got a grant in one of the ecosystem grant process programs of 0x as well. So there was a long period where it was just me and with my friend. We were working on this. We were learning this, not really earning anything, spending whatever I earned from my last job just to survive. And I was living in Bangalore at that time. And then I started to work in one of the exchanges of India, which is quite famous. There I got exposure to Bitcoin Cash. I think it was from Romit himself. I used to go to different meetups, but there was one time when Romit got in touch with me, and he wanted to know some ways of how to create contracts on BCH, but I had no idea how to do any of that at that point. I think that's when I got even more curious, and then finally I decided to work with him. And it's been 3.5 years about 4 years since I'm working with him.
Okay, amazing. So that's Romit, the CEO, I guess, and founder of Zapit. For anybody who's kind of out of the loop, we've had him on the show before. There's an episode with him. I can't remember what number it is. You can look that up to find what he's been doing. And then, so you've been heavily involved. So, well, just to finish that thought, then on the EVM versus BCH side, like obviously Romit kind of must have done a good job convincing you that this was the future, or this was where you should invest in. And the last 4 years of BCH has been a very fortuitous time to be involved, really, because that's almost the same length that this show has been running, a little shorter, and there's been no splits. There's not really been. There was the CoinFlex drama, of course, right, with Smart BCH, but for a lot of it, it's been quite smooth sailing. Do you think that also impacts your perspective of BCH as well?
Well, the split were definitely, a bit confusing for me at that time. Again, it's been just 2-3 years since I graduated, so not really up to the, I didn't have that understanding what kind of an impact they could have. But I didn't leave Ethereum side right away. Like, it's been 4 months since I started Ethereum on BCH, but I gradually started to work more and more on it. For example, I have another project that I'm a co-founder of. That's Mantra Protocol, and it's in four blockchains. That was the second project, second marketplace in Smart BCH. It started from Smart BCH itself. So I just translated everything that I had in or the entire knowledge I had in Ethereum, and then I just used it in Smart BCH. And of course, like with Smart BCH, we expanded to other blockchains as well. Along with it, I wanted to have similar technology like that has lending, auctions, refinancing, so many things that you could do with NFT on EVM. I wanted to translate the same in BCH as well. So I started to dig up more and the scripting language, whether that is possible or not. So it was basically a gradual process how I kept on getting more and more interested in BCH.
Okay, well, I guess we'll take that as a success story. And have you been following a lot of the ETH stuff, like, still?
No.
I've been on this show talking about, I don't really know their plans to do the Beam chain, and Vitalik's now talking about Risk 5, and they're kind of also trying to figure out whether they've messed up their not their inflation schedule exactly, but their staking rewards and like tweaking that, right? So I don't know if you have any perspective on where their ecosystem is at today.
No, it's been like about a year and a half or maybe more. I'm not in touch with any of the developments happening in Ethereum now.
All right. Well, that's also, I'd say, a win if we've got enough going on in the BCH ecosystem that we can get people, down the rabbit hole convinced, and then there's too much going on there for them to follow the rest of the industry. That's exactly how we want things to be going. So I guess, you've been working with Zapit, and we'll come on to that. But the big showstopper news, I suppose, is your project BitCANN that you originally floated a couple months ago. I can't remember exactly when, but I certainly remember you published some of the documentation, and I was reading it. But it is going to be coming into imminent release. I'm just going to read this little summary you have here, and then you can fill out the rest of the details. Okay, so this was what you posted the other day in Telegram. Quote, announcing bitcann.org. BitCANN is a powerful protocol built on Bitcoin Cash blockchain, enabling digital identity, decentralized domain names, uncensorable social media, and more. Owning a single name gives you access to a wide range of capabilities. Receive payments across any blockchain, not just BCH. Payments with privacy using your RPA pay code attached to your name. Resolve your name to IPFS content or DNS configurations. Buy and sell names across any compatible marketplace. Interact with other contracts via a plugin system, for example, leasing your name to others. Passwordless login using your BitCANN identity, and a lot more. And then packages, you've got 3 different open source packages. Tentative app launch July 2025. So take it from there. That's a lot of different things in one. but to give people a simple explanation and understanding of what this is, how would you describe it?
Well, Bitcoin in short is just an identity system. If we go a little technical, it's actually just so there's a package that you own when you're finally getting a name. So that's your contract and a couple of NFTs. Ultimately, the entire process that is happening in BitCANN is for ownership of those things. And for each name, you have like a completely unique pair. So BitCANN is just like an auction system where you finally get access to a unique identity, which allows you to do all the things that I've mentioned there. So that's the crux of it.
So, like, if I describe it as kind of people are familiar with registering a social media handle, right? Like on Twitter, you have your @ones, or maybe you have your name. On Facebook or on Telegram, you have a little link that you send people to jump onto sort of your page to talk to you, kind of thing. That's essentially what we're talking about, right? Because I've seen a lot of this on Ethereum, I think is the most famous for it, where people have on their social media pages and so on, they have like jeremy.eth or vitalik.eth. And so it's kind of like a domain name system, but people register their own name or some other name, and then they can use that throughout the ecosystem as this kind of single reference. So this is like that, but for BCH, right?
That is correct. It's actually heavily inspired from ENS and unstoppable domains. These two are the most famous blockchain digital identity protocols out there. They have been famous for quite a few years. I think BitCANN also has the potential to do the same.
Yes. Okay. And so why did this project spark your interest? Why was this what you wanted to build?
It's actually not what I wanted to build. I just wanted to dive deep into this scripting language. Initially, my goal was that I wanted to see up to what extent can I push the scripts and be how complex of a project, how complex of a contract structure can I build. And since if we have cash tokens and through NFT commitments and token IDs and locking bytecodes, we can have multi-contract interactions. So up to what extent can I push it? And is there any way that I can just... So there's a Ethereum improvement proposal called Diamond Proxy. So my thought process was also heavily influenced by that, because ultimately what that proposal provides is you can scale Ethereum contracts to a massive level. It's not bound by the size of the contracts that you can create, and on the second part, it's actually very efficient when you create transactions, because each individual contract can be an individual function. So you don't have to throw in the entire unlocking bytecode and unnecessarily increase the transaction size and pay extra fees. Instead, you can have some structure where only the specific code is being thrown as the unlocking bytecode, and it still works for the overall ecosystem. For the overall system. So that's what I wanted to work on. There are only few ways how I saw in different contracts that are out there that are publicly available. So you can just on off a few sections of the bytecode of the contract bytecode, or you can have multiple contracts and statically add token categories that you only whichever contract is being executed, that can only execute if n number of conditions, where it's only going to execute if let's say input number 0 is has that token ID which is hard coded in the contract. You'll see that in the fundme.cash contract as well. Or you can have locking bytecode right at the constructor, like if you think it from cash script perspective. But the problem with there is, like, if I'm including a locking bytecode in a contract, then I can't do a cross-referencing. Like, I can't mention that contract's locking bytecode. So let's say the contract A and B, I can just say that you guys are only going to talk to each other, and only you can be included in the transactions. And then there are cases where you have different entry points, and you just do if-else statements inside it. But since we know from so many programming languages that if-else becomes a hell when the contract sizes are big. So since I knew that we are getting the Velma upgrade, and that's going to increase the size of contracts that are possible to like a greater extent. I think it's 10,000 bytes per contract. So I wanted to see if there can be one standard which we can use to create many applications, if that is possible. So I think I released it on February 28th, and I started this in the beginning of February. And suddenly I figured out that what if, since we already know that the locking bytecode and the NFT commitments can be used to do across contract authentication, why not I just throw in the locking bytecode of a contract that I want to be talking to in the NFT commitment itself, and just keep that UTXO within one contract. So if I do that, then let's say this is the contract A. Whenever there is a transaction, it's going to take a UTXO from this contract and going to send it back to itself. But because of the native introspection, what will happen is I can influence the other inputs and say that I am going to be used by this guy, right? And in this contract, you're going to say whenever there is a transaction, only include those in the first or whatever number of transactions depending on the conditions, that only use those contracts in the transaction where you have this locking bytecode that I am keeping in my NFT commitment. So as soon as I saw this part, you want to say something?
Yeah, well, hang on. I'm just trying to reason it through here on the fly here. So you saw that the Velma upgrade was coming in, right? Which was changing how much you could fit inside a particular UTXO.
Yes.
So a UTXO is kind of like, a line in the available touch points on BCH at any one time. So what you're saying is you thought, okay, what if I make it so that if somebody is spending that contract on the new UTXO that comes out, it will re-refer back to itself, or it will create like a copy, let's say on slot 1, but then you can also require that it will also send an NFT somewhere else, or it will also receive some other information, or it will leave you space to add in your own information, I don't know, maybe as an op return or something. Is that right?
Well, yeah, sort of. I guess I'll just rephrase it a little bit, and let's see if that makes sense. So let's say there's just one contract. Let's call it controller contract. Whenever we are going to spend any UTXO from this contract, we have to satisfy all the unlocking conditions, right? And UTXOs are basically just like cash bills. So whenever this is going to be consumed, it's going to get burned, and the new one is going to form, however we want it to be. So the controller contract has this. So it only talks about its own UTXO, and it says that the first input should be from the from the contract that has the locking bytecode that is stored in this UTXO's NFT commitment.
Yes.
So NFT commitments are 40 bytes, but the locking bytecode is just 35 bytes for P2SH32. So it comes in within this limit. So it's gonna just refer to it. Since we have native introspection, it's going to check whether the first input has that locking bytecode, which is being used in the UTXO.
I think I see. Okay, so the NFT carries the hash, and then anytime you're trying to spend it, you want to check is this matching that NFT, and if it is, then you can carry on, and then you're falling within the rules of the contract that you set up with when you initially created the pay to script hash with all the rules.
Right. So now you can have multiple copies of it, because let's say initially at the Genesis phase you have the minting NFT, and now you have so many NFT that you can mint. And let's say you created 5 exact replica NFTs, and each of those NFTs have the same
Locking
locking
button.
button. So
Yeah.
that's like each threads.
Yes.
If you say so, immediately at the same time, 5 different people can make transactions, and now you can have different contracts and repeat the same process. So it's basically like a whitelisting, but on a UTXO level. So whenever you want to, let's say, start auction in BitCANN, you can just use the auction contracts UTXO, which can be any dust UTXO from that contract, because that will satisfy the conditions of the auction contract, right, in order to unlock it. And that is the first input. And the 0th input is from the registry or the controller, as I called it. So now when you have to start the auction, so controller is only saying that the first input should be from whitelisted contract. And there's nothing else that this guy is saying. Now, according to this guy, you can attach anything else in the inputs. But now there are conditions and restrictions in the contract that I already created, which is the auction contract. So now there I can have a restriction that when I am going to be used in a transaction, let's say you can only have 5 inputs and 6 outputs, or any kind of a condition over there. So now I'm basically clipping the entire transaction into a set of instructions that are only governed by the controller and the other contract that is being used with the controller in the transaction.
Okay. All right. So if we let me explain it back to you, tell me where I'm getting things right and wrong. So let's say we start and we're going to create this system that you can get jeremy.bch addresses and things. So I will end up with a jeremy.bch NFT, which I can have in my wallet that anybody can then send money to jeremy.bch, and it will come into one of my addresses, and not even just one address, because that would be just a regular address, right? But the NFT can be an RPA and make more addresses, right? So that's super cool. But so I've got to get this jeremy.bch. So the way I do it is I go onto a marketplace, like TapSwap, let's say. Maybe I can go on TapSwap and I can buy jeremy.bch. Yes?
No.
Where do I buy jeremy.bch?
Jeremy.bch, then you can get it. Otherwise, so BitCANN has an auction process for acquiring names.
Yes.
Let's say if you are interested in getting jeremy.bch, so .bch part is not included in the contract in anywhere. It can be part of the auth chain. So it's just in the BCMR that you're saying that this token category is going to represent .bch domains. All right. So now in reality, you are just doing auction for Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my bad. And as soon as you start a transaction, you'll start an auction that can have, let's say, an auction will have a minimum expiry time of 1 hour, relatively logged. If 1 hour passes by and only you have started and you have only done the auction, then you get to claim that name. So one of the contracts is a domain factory contract that is responsible for minting new domain contracts.
Okay.
And if somebody else is interested in buying that domain, then they can bid on it. And as soon as they bid it, then the same timer will start, and they will have to wait for 1 more hour.
Yes.
So nobody else can bid on it, and then they can claim it. However, since relatively time logged, there is no precedent of stopping it from anybody else from bidding. So you can just keep on bidding if the guy is sleeping. So you can just go there again. And and ultimately, when 1 hour has passed and the last bidder, whoever did it, they can claim it. So they can claim the domain. And now this domain claiming part is also pretty interesting because okay, I'll talk about that in a bit. This domain part is also pretty interesting. So here you are introduced with 2 new NFTs that go directly to your domain contract. So each new name will create a new domain .cash contract. All right. So that is exclusively owned by you. By you, I mean the NFT that is going to be, generated
at the end. Yeah.
From the domain factory.
Yeah.
So it's like, in games where you can only use something when you have like the entire set of the key. You
Yes.
can't just put individually. So the NFT that you own, you can use that NFT with that contract's internal NFT to authenticate that you are the one who is the owner. And now you can do any transactions with the contract. Otherwise, that contract won't allow any transaction, any UTXO from itself to be spent. But if you have that NFT, which was you got it from the auction, then you can attach it with the auction with your domain contract and add records or add any things, just like I said, plugin system and a lot of things that I will talk about.
Right. Okay, hang on. Let me jump in here. So just to be clear, when you said I'm going to initially bid and say I want to buy Jeremy, and then hopefully nobody else wants to buy it in the next hour, and so then I just win it, and I can just then grab the Jeremy NFT for myself.
Yes.
Both of those things, that's BCH transactions, right? So people are not just going to a website and trying to, type in like some eBay auction. It would actually be in your BCH wallet. You are interacting either directly from a built-in part of the wallet or on a website with Wallet Connect, I would guess, or Cash Connect to interact with these and send these transactions, right? Because they do have to actually go out on the BCH blockchain.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. So this could actually drive quite a lot of transactions on the chain if a lot of people are coming to register different domain names. And so every bid, if let's say I want to buy, one BCH for Jeremy.bch or Jeremy, I send in that one BCH and it goes into the auction. And then if somebody else sends in 1.5 BCH, it refunds me my money at the same time as they get theirs. Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm following that. Yeah. Go on.
Should I do about so the auction process? So remember, I was talking about the controller contract, which holds all the.
That's everything.
So I'm calling those threads as authorized thread NFTs. When you're attaching an auction contract and then creating an auction, for example, Jeremy.bch, you want to buy it, that act itself will create another NFT, which is a mutable NFT, and that will go right back to this contract. It won't exist anywhere else. All the auction UTXOs will stay with the main controller contract. And so basically, if you have to see what all names are being auctioned, you just have to fetch the UTXOs and see which token ID. Of course, like there's going to be one token ID for .bch domains. So for this token ID, how many mutable NFTs are there? Or basically how many UTXOs are there, and all those are being auctioned right now.
So it could be like thousands or millions in the end.
Yeah, it gets burned when the auction is completed. So it's not gonna.
Oh, so I was going to say you're going to have millions. You're going to be scanning all these UTXOs trying to find them. Okay, all right. Just during the auction. Okay.
Yes, right. So and since the UTXO exists with the controller, so now bid contract can directly interact with that NFT that is owned by the controller contract. So anybody can bid. So within that, since I already whitelisted the bid contract, I already have some conditions. For example, let's say you have to do at least 5% more in the previous bid. So if you did 1 BCH, then 1.05 BCH, and then 5%, it keeps on going forward.
Yes. Okay. All right. Cool. So basically, so I was talking about it from the user point of view here, but I can see how that is working. And then I make a bid, I successfully win the auction, maybe against someone, maybe against no one. The timer runs out. My money is the one that wins. I grab the NFT for Jeremy, which happens to be in the category of Jeremy.bch. So I now have that in my wallet, and I'm now Jeremy.bch. Who gets the money that I have paid to win the auction, does that go to you?
So since it's an open protocol, whoever is running the project can grab the money. So there's a percentage in the domain factory as to how much you want to get for facilitating the entire process and the management of domains. So let's say if it is 50%, 50% will be collected by whichever platform. So if any individual is running this, they don't need to pay anybody. They can just keep it for themselves. And since there has to be some source of revenue for the platform that is running it, so that platform can attach their address and create the transaction to get the funds, and the remaining goes to the miners. I thought that this can be a pretty neat idea to increase the miner revenue as well.
50% goes to the miners.
It completely depends on the genesis process as to how much you want to give. You can completely go for 100% as well, and the entire funds for the auction just goes to the platform that is running it.
Right. So somebody creates all the contracts and sets them up, which I guess in the first example is going to be you. You're going to be the one doing it.
Yes.
But what you're saying is somebody else can just come along because all the contracts are open source, copy it up, and just be like, okay, well, Kuldeep is charging 50% for his service. I'm going to make my version that's only charging 40%.
Yes.
Or is charging less fees, or is changing the amount of time that the auction takes to run, or is changing what domain names you're buying. So all these different bits are all configurable, which is pretty cool idea. And then the money made from the auctions is, according to their configuration, going to the person who is running one of the domain name systems. And then it's also part of it is potentially going to the miners. That is a very interesting idea, because if, like, as it is now, BCH can only win back hash rate, basically, from BTC by the price going up, or by having extra transactions paying a tiny fee each. So we need a shitload of transactions to make a difference there, right? But if this system is very successful and people are buying a lot of domain names, or I guess also in the case that they're selling them to each other, does that also have a commission to the miners? No.
Selling is just like, since
Person
you
to
have
person.
you can just list it on TapSwap, and
Okay.
that goes from there. Yeah.
All right, so not private sales, but registrations. If they were very popular, if people were paying a lot of money to register, bitcoin.cash or whatever, then that would be extra revenue that the miners could grab. How does it go to the miners? Do they need to set up any extra software or anything? Or is it just like whoever is already mining BCH is suddenly going to discover they're making a ton more money?
So it's basically you're paying for more fees for the transaction. So since basic consensus is that you can't have more BCH created, so you're just consuming less.
Right.
And the remaining goes to the of course they grab it.
Okay, so the miners, what I'm getting at is the miners can just hear the transactions like normal and just grab the money. So we don't need to be going around telling the miners, we've got this new system on BCH, get involved. They would discover that whoever is mining BCH is making more money than they quote unquote should be from just the regular sort of peer-to-peer transactions and also the mining reward. Okay, that's a very interesting aspect of this.
You're talking about another platform coming in and paying, charging less. What they can do is they can offer a discount system, because there's a minimum percentage how you can collect. So if they choose to collect less, the other one will just go directly to the miners. Instead, what they can do is just they can choose to collect and then create another transaction that goes back to the guy who created the bid. But I'm just feeding into my competitors.
Yes. Okay. All right. So that's on the consumer side, and this would be using like Wallet Connect or Cash Connect on a website, or do you see it being integrated directly into the wallets, like in Selene? or Zapit, like in the first version that you're going to launch, how would I actually interact with these as a user?
So I had two-step process in my mind for this. First is since I'm releasing these packages, I was planning to contact all the wallet owners to where I can help and get it integrated as fast as possible. Because to be honest, these packages are very easy to use. Like even my front end, BitCANN.org's front end, which is going to be released in July, that is going to use the same packages to display all the information, to create transactions, to create options. So just for so all the advanced stuff where you're adding records, you're adding your contract, RPA, pay codes, and everything. Initially, everything will be possible in BitCANN.org, and eventually, I'm hoping that all the wallets will also find some value in it and start integrating, because it's going to be very easy if you can just pay using RPA pay code, or you can do cross transaction. You can just fetch, let's say, Ethereum address, right, by scanning jeremy.bch, and so I'm hoping that it's fruitful for all the wallets as well.
Yes. Okay. So I'm really looking forward to digging into those use cases in just a second. But let's just finish off the actual building of the system. So I'm kind of following it from a user point of view, then from the side of the person who's creating it, like you said. So there are 9 different contracts, which I guess you will publish the initial versions that are all open source, and then because they have to be on the chain, and then anybody can tweak and make a copy of them. And if they create all those 9 different contracts that the system needs to run the auctions, to do the bids, to run everything, basically, then that will have just created a clone, and that's it, right? So they literally just need to make, as long as they know what they're doing, any programmer can just make those 9 contracts on the chain, and then they have a system running. Do they need to manage it or do anything from that point?
No, they can actually create a copy. I think they can spin it up pretty fast. It's just that the library, the packages that I'm creating, they are quite open-ended, so it will still require quite a lot of work there. For example, let's say you want to create you don't want to go with the approach of adding metadata related to blockchain addresses. You just want to create a system using BitCANN where you have a social media. So you have your own token, and you are using that token to create accounts, and maybe charging fees to add tweets or something. So, well, of course, this will require very different front-end engineering and back-end engineering, but that is also possible if they choose to do so.
Okay, all right. So there's definitely going to be some wizardry to that. Like, not anybody's just going to be able to run in and undercut you in the day one, just change the percentage revenue from 99 to 1 and then just undercut you. Okay, well, I guess we'll see how that works out. So okay, so tell me, now that we've got this system of identity, this is some really cool use cases you've got here. I want to start with this one about privacy, because that is so topical at the moment and everyone is so excited about that. And I've seen people talking in the Telegram chats about RPA, which is reusable payment addresses, right? These idea that you could just have one name, and instead of everybody paying to your same address, which they are then all showing up, if you just look on a block explorer, you can just look at what somebody is sending you the money. Instead, it's like a sort of quote unquote stealth address where you just give them a name or a pay code, I guess. And then every time they can somehow send you a transaction that you can detect, but nobody else can. It's public on the blockchain, obviously, but nobody knows it's going to you. Walk me through that part of it.
Okay, so before that, I just have to give a little brief on how we will end up here.
Yes.
And then I'll talk about, then it will, I guess, make sense automatically. Let's see. So in the domain contract, as I said, it's a package for the domain contract and a couple of NFTs, and then you also have your own NFT that you use with the contract to create transactions. So the thing is that you can attach a lot of other information, a lot of other inputs, create a lot of other outputs. The only condition that you have to abide by using your domain contract, is that you are using the internal NFT and it matches with your NFT that you have outside in your wallet. As soon as you do that, now you are free to attach any inputs that you want. And that also means that you can create any outputs. And for the outputs, since it makes sense to have op returns to deal with any sort of data that you want to add. So you will be able to add op return data in some format where later on the indexers will be able to make sense of. So as soon as you create a transaction and you create outputs where there is some information that you would like to share, eventually when you are going to let's say fetch all the data shared by Jeremy.bch, the indexes are going to check all the transactions that you have made, which is not going to be a lot of transactions, pass through all the operators that are there and make sense of the data that you have shared. So one of those can be RPAP codes, where since you have already authorized that you are the one who owns it, and now you are creating a metadata, attaching in the operator. So the indexes are going to make sense of it, that okay, RPAP code is attached to it. But this can be of any standard, right? Like I can do XYZ and then attach the RPAP code. I can maybe break it out in chunks, like how to make sense of that data itself. So to tackle this problem, I created sorts, which is a simple operator text standard that is also shared in the announcement. So that defines a standard how you will be adding the data in operators, so that it's easy, so that it's very predictable for the parsers to understand. And as soon as that happens, all the other data that you're adding, that is going to be completely ignored. And that standard also mentions how you can do basically lengthy entries. For example, let's say you have to create a big description, or you want to add your PGP signatures or anything. It also tells you how to go about it. And if you want one key to have multiple values, for example, you want to attach 5 BCH addresses to your name. All right, you can just attach a meta tag to one of the operators, and then mention the value where you will say that this meta tag, this data field is going to be of array type, and then now the parsers are going to make sense of it, because they are going from the genesis where you started the created transaction to the point where you are right now, and just make sense of all the data that you have done so far. And if there is any revocation or any update you have to do, all that will be made sense of at the time that you are reading the data at that time. So now, since this standard is found, now you can easily attach RPAP codes. You can just say that if any wallet is going to read RPAP codes, this is how it's going to be if you are going to follow the sorts standard. Of course, like anybody else is also free to create their other standards as well. That's why I was saying that anybody can use BitCANN to maybe create a social media. They will have their own standard. So, of course, if they're going to create a clone of it, there won't be .bch domains, or at least the known .bch domains. They can have something else, right? So let's say Twitter decided it, so there will be a .x domains, right? And then the metadata, basically whatever you're tweeting, that is going to be in the operators, and they will be able to make sense of it out of it. If you are going to attach any other information, I guess the parsers are going to completely ignore it.
Okay, all right. So what I'm hearing is I get my Jeremy.cash NFT, and then I can make further transactions with op returns, either adding or updating, or I guess even removing quote unquote data from like a little profile that is attached to my NFT that has like, hi, I'm Jeremy, a little profile description, maybe a URL with a link to a profile picture, that kind of thing. And
Yes.
so now, since I can tack things onto my NFT, well, I can have RPA and I can have some profile information. And
Yes.
then, boom, now we've got some sort of a social media going on, which is,
Yeah.
this sounds a lot to me like memo.cash, but kind of quite a bit more complicated. Talk to me about that.
Which part?
Well, so I've created this system that I'm describing
Mhm.
is similar to memo.cash as far as I'm aware, storing the data for a social media feed in op returns. The difference here, I guess, is that the actual data for the tweets doesn't have to be in the op returns, right? You can just use BitCANN to register the usernames and maybe store some additional profile information, and then you can have all the tweet information off the chain, right? Or like some system like that, right?
Yeah, that is also possible. So imagine like all the different wallets. You Let's say you're using Selene wallet and you purchase a name, and by default, it also provides you lookups from the address to the name and from the name to the address if there is no data available in the operator. But at the same time, you will, let's say you're using one of the packages or BitCANN Core packages or any other package. So by default, but just by throwing in the basic Genesis configuration of any of the BitCANN instance, let's say .bch domain that will probably be live in July. What you will be able to get is all the metadata that user has added for all the addresses or IPFS information, your personal profile information, and there are so many other things that you can also do along with it. So it creates like a unified interface for all the wallets.
Yes. Okay. And then the RPA stuff, that all then just comes down to you've put a pay code on a name, and now every wallet that has integrated this can look up the name, find the pay code, and then send transactions, and then that's all handled by
Yes.
RPA. There's no other actual BitCANN part of that, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. So you have that. So that's payments with privacy. Tell me about receiving payments across any blockchain. You mentioned that before, something about scanning ETH to find, how does that work?
Yeah. So since it's already verified that you are the owner of that particular NFT and the pair, the domain pair, all you need to do is within the op returns or any of the data fields that you choose to add, you can also choose to add addresses of different blockchains. So for example, since following the sorts, you are just mentioning that the ETH address is going to be this. So any wallet that supports multiple blockchains, they will be able to see that this individual entity has also added an Ethereum address. So if you would want to receive payments in Ethereum, you just have to attach and broadcast that, hey, for Jeremy.bch, this is the Ethereum address, and then anybody will be able to immediately pay you on BCH or on Ethereum.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And my wallet, which is paying attention to the BCH chain and the ETH chain, will then be watching for those two things, and we'll see them come in. So you could automate it all, right? So like, you are a cheeky domain squatter, so you mint Jeremy.cash, and then I buy it from you, and in the process of buying it, my wallet then generates me a new ETH address, tags it onto the Jeremy NFT, updates that information out across the BCH blockchain, and then starts listening for payments from there. And then I can just and then it also updates on a website or in everyone else's wallet software. So when they type in Jeremy.cash, and then there's just a button, pay in ETH, and they click pay, they type in how much and they click pay in ETH, it sends the ETH, and then my wallet knows that. That's pretty
Sounds good.
amazing. Okay. All right. This is sounding pretty good already. You've got here resolve your name to IPFS content or DNS configurations. That's kind of the same thing, just with like profile pictures and other
Right.
kinds of data. Interacting with other contracts as a plugin system. So tell me about that. That's like anything in BCH, right? That's like BCH gurus, for instance. I can sort of quote unquote sign, like right now, you can sign into BCH gurus and then put your Jessica NFT or your Velma NFT there. But if I already have one of these domain names, then I can just use that instead, right?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I've actually never used gurus. But I'll just give an example that I've given in that mentioned over there. So
Yes.
since you own the domain itself, one of the things that you can do is lease the domain. So you're talking about domain squatter, right? Let's say there wants to be a company that owns thousands and thousands of domains and then lease it to other people, and that is their revenue model. So they can just choose to buy so many names, and then their contracts will be of such nature that they can attach their contracts. Since as I said, like all you need is the NFT that is within the contract, and then your NFT that is in the wallet. So what they can do is they can create another contract, which is a lease contract, and just use those two together to transfer the NFT in a verified way to the leasing contract. And now, since the NFT goes to the leasing contract can now interact with the domain contract and do anything. So the same records, adding or any XYZ number of things, they will be able to do with, of course, limited restrictions depending on how leasing contract is made. But you will also be able to own it for whatever duration of time that company chooses to let you own it, and then just get back the NFT.
Right.
That is how you can do it.
Right. Okay. And you also have the last point here is passwordless login. So that's basically kind of what I was driving at before, right? The idea that so in the future, once this has all been built out, I don't know, in a year, maybe 2 years, we're probably not that far away. It will be like I have my Jeremy.cash NFT, and then I can just go on Cauldron, I can go on BCH Gurus, I can go on whatever, and everything kind of just works because it all already sees that I am the wallet with that Jeremy NFT. And so I'm just already working. Does that mean I could even skip like having to do Cash Connect onto Cauldron because it would just already see that I have the NFT or not?
No, you would have to connect it so it knows which address is connected.
You have, yeah.
And then as soon as you're connected, it will just directly see what all NFTs you have. And in one of those UDXOs is probably your identity NFT. So it's pretty cool if you have any system where you want to create a profile but you don't want to do KYC, but you still want to keep the identity and make it very feasible. So you can't transfer the address from one wallet to another, right? But you can transfer the NFTs. So you can choose to have that NFT in any wallet. Just go to the website. As soon as you connect to it, well, you're connected with your identity and the profile shows up. However, they have designed it, and then you can just choose to transfer your NFT to somebody else, or you can just sell it, and the other guy can just log in and just continue from there. And this can happen with any number of platforms.
Okay. All right. Cool. And then you have sort of ... any number of other systems. I don't know if there's any other particular very like speculative, like this is all sounds like pretty cool stuff, but is there anything like way out there that you would love to see this used for?
To be honest, that's where my imagination ran out.
Okay. But who knows what somebody else will dream up, right?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot more.
Okay.
Because clearly you can do quite a few things. Leasing is just one of the things that I could figure out immediately.
Yes. Okay, and it says here also there's a bit about earn by protecting the system by burning illegal registration attempts, identifying burning registration conflicts, or proving domain violations. So there's some kind of accountability system where people can make money from this. How does that work?
So since there are 9 contracts, 3 of those contracts act as guard contracts. So since there is no state in BCH, it's a completely stateless system. How would we ensure uniqueness, right? Jeremy.bch, as soon as you create a transaction, anybody else can also create a transaction for the same name. How would that work, right? So internally, BitCANN uses token amounts to be that are transferred to auction NFTs, and each one, and it just keeps on increasing by 1 for each auction that you create. So you know, like, there will always be a comparison between 2 running NFTs or 2 running auctions. So if you create a Jeremy.bch and then there's another guy who does it, you can outright just burn that NFT and take the entire money by burning that NFT, because they committed a violation to the rules of how BitCANN operates. So this is going to be a responsibility for the platform that is facilitating auctions, because let's say I just created an auction and at the same time somebody else is also doing it. So at the time of creating transaction, you would have to ensure that no other UTXO exists that has like a lower number of registration ID for it, which is, I assume, going to be very rare. You know, like exactly the same name that is not registered. If those 2 people are just sitting together and they're like, bam, buy it, gonna be pretty rare. But if whenever that happens, then the one that came later on will be penalized.
Right. So as I can sort of provably show my auction was started first. So you're the scammer. Basically, I'm the one who is running the real auction. And I assume each of those, like you said, there was it's like threaded, right? Where you can have them all running simultaneously. So
Right.
each of those must already have an incremented number so that they don't overlap. Is that right? So there's like 10 slots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that you can jump on at any one time. Somebody jumps on number 1 and then it creates number 11, like a fresh slot opens up. Is that how it works?
No. Creating auction is a single threaded. Interacting with the different contracts is multi-threaded.
Okay.
So yeah.
So auctions are only 1 by 1 by 1.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
multi-threaded makes more sense if in minting or any other use case. Here we need to ensure that it's just incrementing by 1. And like, why wouldn't I use some other NFT to game? You know,
Yes.
like if there are 2 threads, that would not work. And since we don't have any chain limit, how many UTXOs?
I was about to say, yeah.
So
Okay.
Go for it.
Right. So then there's just one huge extending chain as everybody kind of jumps on that. Okay. All right. This is all making sense. So is there anything else you want to explain about BitCANN that we haven't covered yet?
Well, there are 2 more ways how people can earn. So I guess I'll just briefly go through those as well. So this is just one part where you're running the auction, but nobody stops anybody to create a new auction when the NFT is already owned, right? What will we do then? So that's when the factory contract comes in, where we were creating a couple of NFTs at that time, right? So 2 of those NFTs were going to the domain contract that you own, and 1 NFT was going to your wallet. So why these are 2 NFTs? One NFT just stays, whose responsibility is to be attached to other contracts. That's the only thing that NFT is going to do. And the other NFT is going to be, attached with your NFT to create transactions. So the one NFT that is just staying there to be that is not going to be used by your NFT. That NFT, which I named it as external auth NFT, that NFT will connect with other contracts. So one of the contracts which burns the illegal registrations, what it does is it says, seems like this name is already owned by somebody. And how do I prove it that it's all owned by somebody? By using an NFT from that locking bytecode. And then I'm going to attach the UTXO, the auction UTXO that is running that auction for some reason. And I can just verify that the names are same, because auction also has the name, and they're creating the locking bytecode from the UTXO. From the UTXO of the external auth NFT that the domain contract has. So it just uses those two together to prove that this illegal activity has been done and penalized. So nobody else will be able to ever create Jeremy.bch once you have already owned it, thanks to that particular NFT that exists in domain.bch for your contract. And another way to penalize is just outright using wrong names. So anybody can prove which index used the wrong name. For example, dots are not allowed. You can just mention in the contract that this is the index where illegal character has been used, and just penalize the contract.
Okay, all right. And you've got July, right, that you think this is going to launch. What's the sort of timeline for this to start rolling out so we can all play with it?
So the contracts were launched in February, and the packages will, I am hoping that at least 0.1 version will be launched by the end of this month.
Okay,
But
awesome.
I think that's a stretch, not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think I'll just be completely launching the auction process and at least a minimal ability to add addresses by the mid-July or maybe at the end of the July.
Okay.
Maybe I'll simultaneously get in touch with different wallets, see if there can be some sort of a revenue sharing that can happen. That is also a possibility. So it incentivizes wallets as well, and
Yes.
It increases the the number of people who are using this protocol itself.
Yes. Okay. So like Celine says, we'll build an integration into this so that people can easily register their domains, and then with that way, and maybe also attach more information onto their domain, we get kind of a cut for doing
Yes.
that. So then now the wallets are making revenue, you're making revenue because more people are using it, and the network effect of the whole protocol grows. So it becomes more standardized in the ecosystem. That makes sense. Do you want to talk a little bit about building this in the sense that, like we said, it was 9 contracts and 6 NFTs, and this was your sort of first foray into under the new VM limits. Like, how complicated of a system can I build? I sort of feel like right now I'm sitting here with my head spinning, trying to figure out how all this fits together. But once people get familiar with, the patterns of this is how you build a more complicated system, this is how a UTXO system is worked, like you talked about the unlocking bytecode in the NFTs. Like, once people get the hang of that kind of stuff, we'll probably see more and more complicated things coming out after that, right? Where do you see that going? Do you see that growing in complexity? Do you think it will stay sort of low complexity for a while? Is there going to be specific dev tooling that is needed for reasoning through or auditing these kind of systems?
I think if this standard is used, because we'll talk about OCD as well, and that also uses the same standard. If this standard is used, well, at least there will be one standard that is being used by multiple, applications and contract systems. So it makes sense for other developers as well to just use that right away, just like it happens in Ethereum. They create different standards, and then eventually over the course of time, either they get heavily audited, or, well, of course they will get heavily audited, but it becomes a norm as to how people will construct different contracts. But to be honest, after the Velma upgrade, the entire BitCANN could have totally been within a single contract. But then again, it would be a lot of if-else statements or different functions, different entry points. But that makes it very hard to audit. You can because like even if you are creating this huge contract, it's better if you are splitting it into different functions because of the serious nature of Bitcoin script itself. Like it's
Yes.
money that you involved. I think eventually more contracts will definitely come into existence. But I'm personally hoping that this particular system can just spin up super quick. Like I want to get this out there as fast as possible to show that this is possible now. Let's spin more.
Let's get some action. Let's get some excitement going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming from.
All right. I love it. Okay, so that's BitCANN, and you kind of touched on it there. You've got this second idea, which I guess is, I don't know whether it's related or it's parallel to this or something called OpenCashDAO. The description for that is OpenCashDAO is a decentralized autonomous organization template for the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. It is designed to empower stakeholders and token holders to influence the project's direction. It serves as a proposal and voting platform, enabling token holders to vote on various proposals to modify the project's functionality. Walk me through this one. What's OpenCashDAO?
So OpenCashDAO, as you call it, OCD. Its underlying architecture is almost the same as BitCANN, where it's using UTXOs in the controller contract and using authorized threads to be able to add restrictions that they can only be spent with the whitelisted contracts. But the good part is, since they exist as UTXOs, it's also possible to add more UTXOs, and it's also possible to remove the UTXOs. And since each UTXO has the locking bytecode in it, well, it should also be possible for an external contract to control what UTXOs can stay now and what UTXOs can be added or replaced, which means, in a way, you're updating the real project. For example, let's say BitCANN was governed by OCD. OCD would be able to change the contracts. Well, of course, this is not changing the contract because that contract still lives. But you can, let's say you found somebody found a bug in auction contract, right? So all OCD has to do is create a proposal for all the token holders. And if that proposal passes, it will be able to remove or replace all the UTXOs that were pointing to the previous auction contract. So now, because of the new proposal, you will be able to change how the auction contract works now. So any sort of any vulnerabilities or any bugs that were there in the previous auction can now be updated. So this facilitates upgradable projects. Now, OpenCashDAO itself is a voting system. So let's say you initially, through some mechanism, you have distributed cash tokens to a lot of users. They'll be the stakeholders for that particular project. And they will be using OpenCashDAO to vote on the proposals to change the functionality. So right now, we just fixed bug in this example, but there can be anything else as well. So it just completely has the ability to update or remove the functionalities or replace the functionalities of any of the projects. So now, since you are voting for it, you are voting in that particular system. Again, same logic is followed. You're writing a proposal. So that proposal is just the locking bytecode of the new contract that you want to add. Or so it needs a very beautiful interface, of course, so people can see that this is the proposal, this is the new code that is going to be added, and this is the reasoning for it. I vote. And as soon as they click on vote, if they have those tokens, they just connect with the wallet connect and they create a transaction, and the vote is considered. So OpenCashDAO also has some configurable abilities where you can mention that this is the minimum threshold of the tokens that need to be passed. Right. So since token holders already have tokens, and there is a clean interface for the DAO, they can just choose to vote on any proposal or retract vote. Both of the things are possible. So there has to be a minimum threshold of how much you can. Let's say there are 100,000 tokens out there floating, and for any proposal to pass, the minimum threshold for the DAO is 20,000 tokens. So if that proposal gets more than 20,000 tokens votes at the end of the minimum duration, where the proposal could there will be a duration for the proposal. All right. So as soon as that duration is expired, now you can perform any action. How you perform that action depends on the proposal itself. So here is where the P2S upgrade will be definitely good for us, because because of the strict limitation of 40 bytes in the NFT commitment. So in this example, I just added the script hash instead of the locking byte code. So saved a couple of bytes there, and then added a few identifiers which define what is the nature of this proposal. So do you want to update the proposal? Like, for example, do you want to add new contracts to it, or replace it, or of course remove it? Once that is said and done, you will be able to create new how do you call it? New contracts initially, new UTXOs for the project that you were controlling. And there's also a minimum requirement for like, if you have to create a proposal, it can't be like anybody can create a proposal. So there has to be a minimum amount of BCH that you have to lock with the proposal itself. So in order to indicate seriousness, because if your proposal fails, that money goes away.
Where does it go, to the miners or something?
I mean, whoever burns it, like,
Okay.
it's like, this is a failed proposal. So whoever first creates the transaction, well, if the miner is looking at it, they can also do that.
Okay. All right. So just to roll this back a little bit so that people are following along here. Now, I am not super familiar with the state of DAOs across the whole crypto ecosystem, and I think a lot of the time a DAO, quote unquote, is really just a few guys that all know each other. They put that wrapping around it, say it's real decentralized, and then they issue some tokens to try and raise money. And then at the end of the day, they just do whatever they want to do, basically. But what you're talking about is maybe we're getting to actual DAOs, actual distributed autonomous organizations in this sci-fi, but not very far in the future, where, let's say, all the Jessica holders for Bliss, we can create one of these OpenCashDAOs to manage the .bliss domain name. So we have BitCANN, we spin that up, we call that .bliss so that everyone can have .bliss domains, and then we put the Jessica holders in charge of that system, and they have in their wallet somewhere, if a little app thing, a screen or tab or whatever, that if you are a Jessica holder, you can open that tab if you're not too bad. And then in there, you can vote on the proposals that people are putting in. And those proposals are literally switching over the code of the Bliss BitCANN. So then people can say, okay, well, we want to increase the amount of money that goes to the miners, and less of it goes to the Jessicas, and then everybody votes. And if the proposal is passed, then it all happens automatically on chain. Like, you're literally having the stakeholders run things via on-chain NFT voting, right? This is going to get pretty... So
yeah, definitely.
So we're all going to be like shareholders in the in the not too distant future. We're all going to be sitting there with our Selene wallets as these kind of masters of the universe, with shares and NFTs and whatever in all these autonomously running projects on the BCH blockchain, and you can just log in today, open your Selene wallet. What's on the recipe today? Yeah, I'm in favor of that. I'm against that. And you can also get paid back, right? Because let's say the Jessica NFTs, or let's say you buy some AFOG token for a fifth of gaming, you might vote one way or another thing. And then the money that AFOG is earning can also go back to the AFOG token holders, which is you who was voting on the proposals. So now you're incentivized to actually pay. It's just it's like shareholders in a company, except it's all running automatically on the blockchain. So there's no like geographic restriction. There's no minimum limits on who can buy in. It can influence the price of the token trading on Cauldron. Like, it's pretty wild, I think.
That's a good idea. Although this contract works with only token amounts, but what you are saying is definitely also possible with a little bit of alteration to the code.
With the NFTs, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. And now I'm going to go one level up on this, which is that these can be recursive. So the DAOs can manage another DAO.
DAO can control a DAO that can control a DAO.
Right. Okay. So then that means that we're going to have like people will be able to buy in. For instance, when we were talking about this initially on Telegram, my first thought was funding, right? Because we've had Flipstarter, and then we've upgraded to FundMe, which has been better and more efficient. And then this will potentially be the next step, because what I want to be able to do as a BCH community member is go on a page and fund, like the Ethereum Foundation. They're these centralized guys that have a huge stack of money and they divvy it up however they want, and that's fine. But we need something like that, but a decentralized version. So I could go on a website called, maybe not the BCHF, I don't know whether Cheap Lightning would want to run this or not, but you have it there and you can say, I want to just put money into marketing, or I want to put money into merchant onboarding, or I want to put money into tech development or something. You just send your money into that part of the DAO, and then it's managed by the DAO stakeholders, which is, whoever has, I don't know, paid a membership fee or something like that, who can then vote on which projects, maybe even from a certain whitelist or something, that the money goes to. So we can, and then obviously we can make a whole nice dashboard and it can all be super interactive. And I can just see this kind of level of coordination in a cryptocurrency ecosystem at a decentralized scale. This could just blow everyone else out of the water. Like, nobody has anything like this, right?
Yeah, I've not seen anything like this anywhere. Your idea is really good, actually. And you can also have this really good control where when you're sending funds, you don't let the funds be gone right away.
Yes.
You keep the accountability, so they can just take a few chunks of that money and
per delivery.
Deliverables. Yeah.
So it would be like, I want to get the podcast funded. We usually do them in episodes of 10 batches. Maybe we continue that system, but people can just put money into the DAO, and then the DAO votes and decides that the podcast is doing pretty good. We're going to put more money into the podcast, but it sits in so I can see in the DAO that the money is already there, but to get it, I have to get another vote through. I have to deliver the previous 10 and unlock a whole lot of people. Yeah, good job on the last 10. We'll give you the funding for another 10, and just work through, like, because that provides the accountability to the people delivering things, but it also provides them an incentive, because you can lock the money up front so they know that it's there. They're not thinking, oh, I'm going to do a Flipstarter or a FundMe and maybe nobody contributes, or maybe nobody wants this or something. And you can also back your campaigns and your things with your NFT that you minted at the start, right? With your name on it. So then you're getting the money to your RPA wallet somehow from the DAO. This is pretty cool, right?
Yeah, like the thought of it.
Do you have any other ideas of a use case? What was your thought of how OpenCashDAO would be used? My first thought was funding, but I'm sure there's a lot of other use cases. Kuldeep, have you got like, I thought immediately of funding for OpenCashDAO. Did you have something in mind that you I guess maybe the BitCANN things, you thought people would run a BitCANN instance, or do you have any other speculation what kind of DAOs we'll see people running?
Well, I was thinking of like I gave an example earlier, I don't know where, about Moria protocol. Like instead of doing a sunset, well, they can totally use the DAO, and it can be like the DAO that you were talking about that Ethereum people or other people use, which is like just a few of the people are the stakeholders, and they can just update it anytime they want. And the good part is that you can also renounce the ability to upgrade the system. So you can verifiably either burn the NFT that will be responsible to update any of the projects. You can just burn your own token. So there's so much flexibility to it. Any project, for that matter, can be can use a DAO there. Like if that works for them, of course.
Yes. Okay. All right. Wow. So this is really going to be, possibly the future of BCH. I can already see it in my mind that we're logging onto some little app dashboard, wallet, Selene, Cash and Eyes, PayTarget, whatever, and it's just all plugged into this huge dashboard of like, it just sounds fun as well too, like running the whole ecosystem. It's like playing Civilization, but with real money, with our own real money in the things that we want to build. It's just like, okay, let's put the money in here, let's put the money in here, and then see what happens, right? Does sound very cool. There's a lot to build here though, right? What do you have any speculations on the timeline of all this? Because not only do you got to launch BitCANN, you said by mid-late July. What about all this OpenCashDAO stuff? Is that ready to go, or is that a sort of separate project, or who's going to build the front end and all that for this?
I don't know. Like, to be honest, as soon as I finished my work with writing contracts of BitCANN, I just thought of this idea, whether it's possible to have upgradable contracts. That was the only thought in my mind. And then eventually I ended up, imagining a DAO. Why not, allow stakeholders to make the upgradability? Upgradability can totally happen without the DAO as well. So I don't really have any plans to create any front end for it for the moment, because I still want to dive quite deep into the scripting. There's so much that I still don't know. So I'd rather focus on that than work on, because there's so much that can potentially be built in future, and I would definitely love to contribute to chips and be someday create my own chip. I don't know, that's like a badge of honor. So after BitCANN, I would rather want to be more focused on continuing my exploration on what else can be done. So I recently also started, like last week I started see if prediction markets are possible. Seems like they are with this system itself, but I don't know. It will be fun after probably in August, if that comes into existence.
All right. So what I'm hearing is you're looking for collaborators. If somebody came to you and said, "I love this OpenCashDAO stuff. I want to build it out to make it more usable and feasible." Yeah. Again, probably with the wallet devs, maybe we can spin up something there with Selene. I'll have to talk to Callisti. We've already got a mega backlog, but I love this idea. I'm so excited for it. So okay.
MIT licensed all of them, so it's not like anybody needs to seek permission from me.
Yes.
They can just take it.
Yeah,
Though
but
you'd not build it.
yeah, but you'll still be obviously available. Like, I'll talk to you
Yeah.
to get your advice and input and so forth. So okay, so if anybody wants to jump on that, that's a like multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar idea right there. If you can just get started on that at any time. Okay, you mentioned the upgrades. I think let's just skip a slide and go straight to that for the moment. Then the Velma upgrade, I guess you can comment on. I suppose was necessary for these contracts to be either more feasible or cheaper. I don't know, but the BCH upgrade momentum is really kicking into gear. So tell me a little bit about Velma and how you thought that went. I know you were watching the Bliss live stream, and then we'll get on to maybe some of the other proposals as well too.
Sure. So, like I was also supposed to be there, but as you know, my visa got rejected. I was very excited. Of course, like it was good that it was 3 days long, so it was lots of popcorn, and I would just sit right here, and I'll just look at all of you guys having fun without me.
Sorry, mate. Maybe next year.
Yeah, but like. Of course, like Velma upgrade is probably the biggest upgrade. So I created a slide where you're SpongeBob, just the regular guy, and then he is bulked up. And then
yes.
Which upgrade was the last one? Abla upgrade, and then Cash tokens, and then now this Velma upgrade is like super red and ready to punch. So that's BCH. Couldn't show that slide. So I was like super excited for like the Velma upgrade. And when it comes to BitCANN, it has definitely made it better because there is a limit of stack element size, and that was 520 before this. Now it's 10,000. So it became easier for me to expand the domain contract, where like I was talking about the the external auth NFT, where you can prove that it's already owned by somebody. What if the incentive fails and now there are 2 owners, right? So that is a possibility. So before Velma upgrade, I couldn't stuff enough code inside the contract where there could be a like a competition with the contract itself. For example, 2 Jeremy holders, they would still have a different registration ID, right? But now I could fit that code in as well, thanks to this upgrade. So now even if that incentive system fails, you will know that somebody else bypassed somehow. People were not taking money that was out there for free, and now there are 2 Jeremys. So you can just kill the other guy who came after you. Right. So that was the help that Velma upgrade did for BitCANN.
Right. Okay. And you think that's going to just, all this stuff, the OpenCashDAO, like everything, it's just going to make a huge difference, right, across the ecosystem. I imagine from you being close to the like I'm so glad that we're now at the stage where we're getting the upgrade through, and there's already like things rolling out. It's not like, oh, this is cool, now let's see what somebody does with it. Like, you were already needing this, and now we've delivered it at the protocol level, so that's now flowing up into the tooling and then into the apps level, and then it's going to come to the user apps that everyone can use. So that's so cool. I'm like, everything is working. you love to see it. That's good software development, which is no small task, even in a centralized company, but in a decentralized ecosystem, it's amazing to see. So tell me about Loops, Pay to Script, 2 of the others that have already been proposed. Do you have any thoughts on those ones?
So I'll just quickly tell about OpenCashDAO as well. So that was not possible without the Velma upgrade. The conditions were such that most of the functionalities were simply not possible without the Velma upgrade. So that is super cool that
That's a win.
now
Yeah.
we can build DAOs. And I'll talk about the proposals. So first of all, like all the active proposals that we are going to talk about. So all the proposals that we will be talking about, the op loop, not op loop, begin, op, until. So basically the loops, the functions that Jason just recently introduced. What's the other
TypeScript.
one? P2S.
Yeah.
That's I'm in favor for all of the proposals. And to be honest, if they existed right now, then the structure of BitCANN would have been completely different. Because I'll start with P2S. So one of the add-ons in P2S is that we increased the 40 bytes of NFT commitment limit to 128 bytes. So initially in BitCANN, I didn't design it. Okay, let me recollect my thoughts. In BitCANN, since I'm using token ID, token amount to create registration IDs, right? That is the trick that I'm using, not because I wanted to, but because there was not enough space. In just the 40 bytes, I would have to store the information of the guy who's bidding, registration ID, and a couple of other information that I'm forgetting right now, but it's definitely more than 40 bytes. So there was no way for me to design BitCANN if I didn't think of using the token amount to use as a trick to create registration IDs. But so if it already existed 128 bytes, I would just have that in probably at the beginning and just have a chunk of 8 bytes where it would just keep on incrementing, right? So P2S would have altered the design of BitCANN straight away. Of course, the standardization of the unlocking bytecode for which is 201 bytes now. I find it very interesting. I'm not sure where it will be used, but of course, like it won't be available right away. For example, by wallets or cash script, they won't be able to support it right away because it's very generic. As you're not paying to an address, you're just paying to a script. So it can be completely different for each individual. But that is such a interesting upgrade to have. And third one, of course, I think it's a per input limit of 1,650 to 10,000. That is also, I mean, why not? You get to do more with the single input. So P2S is pretty cool. Same with loops. We need loops. Every programming language need loops. BitCANN needed loop. OpenCashDAO needed loop. So in the name, so in the three guards, the guard contracts, one of the contract is where you're just telling the index of where you've used the incorrect name, right? So let's say OpenCashDAO says that you can just use from small a to small z, capital A to capital Z, and just numeric numbers. You can't use anything else. This penalization system wouldn't exist if we had loops. Because at the time when you are creating the auction and you're telling that this is the name that I want to buy, at that time it would just reject it right away because it has loops, right? So BitCANN structure would have been completely different. Same with OpenCashDAO, because let's say you want to mint 5 threads for a new contract that you want for your project, right? How will those 5 contracts be minted? Right now, how OpenCashDAO is constructed is like it will need 5 transactions. So you can retract vote anytime, but when the execution has started, now you can't retract votes. Anybody or somebody has to create those 5 UTXOs as the new contracts. Only then the OpenCashDAO allows you to take back your votes. So there's a small lock time there. This wouldn't be necessary if we had loops. We just directly loop through and add 5 outputs directly right to the locking bytecode of that project and be done with it, right? We need loops, and thank God we have the VM limits. So, I mean, we can shamelessly use it. So that's also pretty cool.
Yes.
what's the
And then the op
next?
eval, the functions one. So Jason Dreisner has actually just put out an updated op eval after there was feedback. People weren't all, completely sold on it. Different back and forth. He's done an updated version. Have you looked into that updated version?
Yeah, I've looked into the updated version. I think that is very clean, although it uses additional code point. So we have two, op define and op invoke. So we just need, for op define, we just need we create a function identifier and just throw in a bunch of opcodes. And then whenever we have to, unroll it basically in a way, we would just use the function identifier and invoke it. And this reduces the transaction size. Again, in BitCANN, it could have been totally useful because in all the other contracts, there is a lot of repeated code that increases the transaction size unnecessarily. Again, if we had that upgrade right now, I would just create one function, and so many of the repeated codes would just go away. So that is also and also I think it would be very easy not very easy, like relatively easy for the new proposal to be implemented in Cash script as well. So we'll very soon have def functions there, not just the contracts and function. We will have reusable functions as well.
Right. So you're sounding to me like full steam ahead, like pedal to the metal. Let's go. Do you have any reservations about any of them, or no? You're just like, let's crack on. Let's get it going.
So, sorry, come again.
So you're saying like, let's go. There's no part of you that's thinking, oh, we need to be cautious. We need to review it more, or you just think everything, let's ship it. All those 3 upgrades, let's just get them in for 2026.
Well, I want to, but again, like I'm just saying it from right now. I'm just like a contract dev. I don't deal with a node itself. Like I don't deal with working like how internally how the opcodes will be defined, and I'm pretty sure like I can't be the guy who says let's just go for it, because I don't have that competence right now. Maybe in a couple of years, and I will definitely have something to go for it. But I mean, these things are definitely necessary. I hope that so many awesome devs that we have, I can just trust all of them and to include it in the next upgrade.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's good info to have. Everybody can obviously put in their opinion, but basically, from your point of view, these are all big wins. And I like how you're saying, look, I've already built these contracts. They would all be improved, because I always have in the back of my mind emergent reasons saying like, let's not just like ship in a bunch of stuff. Let's have real use cases driving what we're adding at the protocol level, right? Which makes sense. We're not just like engineering to engineer. We're engineering because we know we have a proven need, basically. So I can see that. Okay. All right. That sounds pretty good to me. Now, we've also got 2 new proposals have come up recently, which we didn't really talk about at Bliss. I don't think they were even out at that time. Jerry has proposed an elliptic curve math opcodes, and Jason has proposed Bitwise math opcodes. Do you have a take on each of those?
Yeah. So after I was working on OpenCashDAO, I briefly also worked on Chainlink VRF replica. If wanted to see if that is possible or not. So how it would work is like if there is a provable way where we can create a random function, random number, then we can send like a request to the contract that internally will call one function from my contract. I'll tell which function. So this can act like a standard where a particular piece of code will define. No, I'll reiterate. So what it was is like you can call some function from the random number generator, and that contract would call a function in your contract and would provably provide that this was indeed a random number that was generated, and that can be for any purpose. right? So I wanted to work on this. So I dig a little deeper onto how it's working in the first place. Turns out, Chainlink VRF is not like a complete zero knowledge proof. It's a pseudo zero knowledge proof. And again, I have very limited knowledge. I wish I had more. But like when I was digging into it, that's when I got to know that they are using a different curve, which is BN 154 or 156, not sure, for generating zero knowledge proofs. I have no idea why that works. Apparently, that does for Ethereum, and I think also for Zcash. But they have pre-compiled contracts. They are not available right away for anything. So they have like 9 or 10 contracts that they have pre-compiled, and they just use that to do the calculations on that elliptic curve. So I think if we have that, but I don't know, since we have limited code points, I think we should have a lot of extensive research on what new opcodes we can add, right? So this, I think, will take quite some time. But if we have that, we will have everything that Ethereum has and all the other privacy chains have.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so that's for the EC math. What about the Bitwise math? Are you a fan of that? Like that was probably the least controversial proposal I've ever seen. Like Jason said, I'm thinking about doing this, and the thread immediately filled up with people like, yep, love it, let's do it. Everybody just jumped on the bandwagon for that because it's so obvious. He hadn't even got a proper proposal, but everybody was like, this is so obvious, right?
Yeah, and Callan immediately created the
Callan like knocked it out in like an afternoon somehow. Yeah.
It was like super fast. He did it like a couple of hours or something.
I mean, that kind of touches on the overall point, right? Which is that the speed, I feel like, of BCH ramping up, you can feel it, right? It's like an engine. You think Cash tokens, look, several years in proposal, it was all debated and discussed, etc. We got it in, but even then, even after it activated, it was like, okay, we still got to build it out into the wallets, still got to build Cauldron decks, still got to add Cash Connect and Cash, Wallet Connect, all this stuff, Cash Token Studio, and even now, over 2 years since the upgrade, it still is like there's a million things that are not even slick or created at all. But then Abla again was like, okay, that wasn't really related to functionality necessarily. That was more, a long-term thing. Now Velma has kind of kicked the door open, and because of that, now we're just seeing this. Like it's just unblocked this huge, and we don't even have necessarily the biggest dev community, right? It's growing, like more people are arriving, which is also increasing the speed. But even at a small scale, like the rate of change is just ramping up. Are you feeling that too?
Yeah, definitely. I have an example for it. So let's say you fast for a day or maybe 2 days or 3 days, and then you get food. That's how I feel. Everybody's just gobbling up proposal after proposal. So that's the example that I would use. Yeah, definitely feeling very positive and optimistic with all the new proposals.
Do you think that will keep accelerating? Like if we get for 2026, if we get a few more of these through, because I've been speculating on the show, like I thought, well, maybe we'll just have 1 or 2 proposals a year, we'll get a few in and then that will be fine. But it's kind of like the more people you get involved and the more action and use cases and stuff you have, the more people come up with good ideas, the more things you can do. Like there's still all stuff with like quantum and with UTXO commitments, and there's sub Satoshis, new transaction versions. Like there's going to be all kinds of things that people are going to be like, this would be a sick upgrade. So I sort of feel like maybe the upgrades themselves are going to get like bigger and bigger because we're also doing them further ahead of time. So we have more time to evaluate all the different things. There's more people involved, so there's more horsepower to code them up and review them. So between all of it, it's like the BCH upgrades are going to go from like small, and it's going to just start getting like, I don't know. It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like I liked the most enthusiastic was when 1 minute blocks was introduced by BCA, and the discussion was really cool. And also there is so much discussion going on with about the UTXO commitment. However, I had just one thought about Bitwise operators though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly where they will be used in any of the applications, at least on the BCH level. But yesterday I tried to create a exponential function using Bitwise operators, and that took a lot of bytes. And if we have to create any financial application, and everybody's replicating the same number of bytes, because apparently we might have some library where we'll just pick it from, just like ETH has a lot of math function they had, then upgraded it. We might also want to consider exponential and log here itself. ETH also has it. Just before the call, I was like, I'll just verify if they have it or not. They do. So like if we are thinking that Bitwise is good enough to create power exponential functions, maybe maybe it's also a good idea to introduce these math functions as well. Like I saw a thread. I haven't gone through the entire thread that Matthew created.
Yes.
Exactly for this purpose. I haven't gone through the entire thread, so I don't know all the to and fro's that everybody has gone through. But like if it would be pretty cool if we introduce this as well.
Yes. Okay. Well, maybe that will be even yet another proposal. What about the 1 minute blocks you just touched on there? Do you have an intuition for that? Are you strongly in favor, undecided, think the research looks good, haven't looked into it? Where are you at on that?
So I've partially looked into it. Initially, I looked into it, and then a couple of weeks ago, I went through it again. It seems like the orphan rate probably won't be more than 1.6 something percent. Not sure, maybe 2%. Sounds reasonable to me with the level of internet speeds that we have all across the globe. 10 minutes was also an arbitrary number. One is also the same. I'm heavily in favor for it, but again, that's just me. I have not done any real world experiments that I can say that let's go over 1 minute blocks, because the consequences are real just by us changing it to a 10 times. But of course, it would be such a good user experience, such a boom to user experience. Like right now, if you have to wait for 6 confirmations, sometimes it takes 1 hour, and sometimes it's just 2-second blocks. I've seen both of them right next to each other, or like in a span of 5 blocks. It would be so much better if max it goes as 10 minutes. Like that's the max it will go, right? What we have the expectation from right now, and it goes to 1 hour. The user experience would be really good if we have 1 minute blocks. But although, like why 1 minute? Why not 59 seconds? Why not 70 seconds? Like I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the proposal more deeply. But from what I've read, there is no exact number for there is no Goldilocks time, time or something.
Yes. Well, it's the kind of thing that now the idea has been circulating in the community for a while. I'm the same as you, and I've heard other people say the same. Now that it's in the back of my mind, if I'm looking up a block explorer and I just see like last block 30 minutes ago, I'm thinking, what are we doing here, guys? Like, really? Is there any reason that we're just handicapping our entire ecosystem like this? So, yeah, I feel like mimetically, it's gaining traction just because now it's in people's minds. People like it's so obvious to see the use cases where you're like, this is annoying. Everybody has had that moment of being like, oh god, when's the next block?
I didn't care at all because of like just my not being on exchanges until I was using BitGree, and just one confirmation took like almost, I think, 75 minutes or something like this. And I was like, this is unacceptable. I am now completely in favor of 1 minute blocks.
Well, that's it. Again, we're just solving a real pain point. We're not changing it for change's sake. The idea came up, people thought about it a little bit. Then the more you think about it, the more you're kind of like, no, it sort of makes sense. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, yeah. Any other final thoughts on any of those different upgrades?
Well, for 1 minute blocks, I think Tom has a good point that zero confirmations are good enough, and double spin proofs are also good. But then Bitcoin Cash artist already has shared that it doesn't work with incorrect P2SH parent. I guess not sure, like something along those lines. I haven't seen it deeply, but 1 minute blocks are going to be so much helpful for a simple user experience. Let's say I have to go outside, right? And I just want to sell some BCH or sell. We all sell. We are not a number go up guys. So let's say I have to sell some BCH or just do something on let's say Binance, but they take so long, and it's such a hellish time. So you have to wait for 2 hours, maybe, I don't know, maybe half an hour, and everything goes by immediately. So I have no plans for my life for the next 3 something hours. Everybody will be happy with the upgrade. I don't know anyone who will be like, shit, why not 10 minutes?
Yeah, nobody's arguing to make it longer, and that's one of the things that Bitcoin Cash Order says in the proposal is like, BTC started at 10 minutes. As far as I'm aware, there is literally no coin in existence that has increased the time. Like, there's literally no reason. Nobody was ever like, that was a win. People have gone ridiculously small, but nobody's even gone to 10 minutes and 1 second. Like, we'll increase our decentralization like that. Like, the trade-off is just so obvious that the market has spoken, it seems like.
Well, it might work. I think part of the research, his research is like cross-planetary blocks.
Yes.
Well, in that case, it makes sense to have longer. If we can do a side chain or something.
Yeah.
Then definitely.
In that chain, in that case, you'd probably just have a local blockchain to each planet, and then you'd have a super blocks between planets or something like that. All right, we've kind of used up a lot of time on all the good stuff, so I have one other little bit I want to kind of quickly get to, but let's just rip through here. Community comment of the week. I just want to give a shout out to Ultra Fresh, who was at the Bitcoin conference, the BTC conference. Here he is posing in front of a nice orange wrapped, what are these songs called? A Tesla Cybertruck. He said, the obligatory Bitcoin Cash flex at the Bitcoin conference, more positive energy and shout outs for BCH than ever before. The OG industry players like miners and exchanges gave mad respect. So good to see him representing there. And, for anybody who's interested, obviously you can go look at all what happened there. But there was basically just a lot of discussion about stable coins. Kind of Michael Saylor started talking about how BTC doesn't need to be a medium of exchange at all. Ross Ulbricht said maximalism kind of isn't the way to do it, guys. And basically just quote unquote shit coins were dominating the sort of side events and the discussion from what I could make of it. So year on year, things trending in the direction of truth there and away from laser-eyed nonsense. But I wanted to actually just check in on our friends at Bitcoin Knots, because we had the hoax episode or the mechanics episode on the last one, and in the last couple of weeks we've already seen some of my predictions coming true. The Knots adoption has grown slightly, that to 11%. And like I said, we really want to keep an eye on that level of when it hits 20 to 25%, because if history is any guide, that's when serious pieces will start moving in the ecosystem, when they maybe will feel that they have enough popular support to advocate, even more seriously against Bitcoin Core, or when perhaps things might might ramp up a little bit. But we have also seen the censorship and communication disruption that I predicted has come true already. The Bitcoin Core guys have been playing games with hiding and unhiding the ACK and NACs on the PRs to confuse everyone. And I also predicted that miners will begin receiving additional pressure, which we've also seen with several pools announcing plans to accept non-standard transactions. So that would go from just a Mara thing to several other pools and more of the hash rate, which again sort of might contravene any efforts by the Knots guys to kind of cut that off. In the meantime, they've also begun optimizing their brand. Some guy made a thread. We've got a picture here of all these different variations of Knots on the previous slide here. And honestly, as soon as I saw this, it immediately reminded of me of like Bitcoin Cash that we had at the start of the Bitcoin Cash podcast. It's literally like that same font. They just have it in orange instead of green. And to me, that just means like they've already given up, right? They already know that they are not, quote unquote, the real Bitcoin, because if they were, they could just use Bitcoin. But the fact that they are now spending time and energy reinvested in fiddling with their branding, it's the classic entrepreneur move, right? Of if you're going to launch an app, the first thing everyone does is make a logo because it's fun and easy, but nobody wants to actually like sit down and work on the database backend or something, because that's hard. What do you make of this, Kuldeep? Do you have a thought on whether the Knots Brigade are going to be able to wrestle control back from Bitcoin Core?
I from what I've seen over the years, I can just say that it feels sad to have so many people with such incredible talent and absolutely wasted on people who are just stubborn in a way. These people try to make some changes. They try to revolutionize Bitcoin that they are so attached with, and then ultimately so many of them end up giving up. Instead of that, it would have been much better if they could have just gone through the history, and what we are doing, it's so much better. I'm not sure. This is, I think, 90 something percent is already Bitcoin Core nodes, and it's 12 something percent for the Knots nodes right now. I'm not sure how long it can continue, because I see it walling down a little bit, like cooling down a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
well, they're going to lose steam. The idea for them is they've done an impressive job of getting from under, 0.5% up to 10 or 11%. That's good. But each additional percent becomes harder to get, right? Because, of course, at the start, it's going to be all the most enthusiastic people and the voices are going to be loud. I guess one view is that they can maybe snowball that. They feel if they get 20%, and they can say, look, we're taking over, and then more people switch. They start pressuring companies in the ecosystem and they build up that way. Or it can go the other way around, which is that there's a certain percent of people that are never going to switch from Bitcoin Core, and just as they get increasingly closer to that threshold, whatever it is, whether it's 80%, whether it's 50%, whether it's 30%, then they will just hit a brick wall that they just cannot convince people to switch, right? And to actually make a difference on the network, they probably need Knots to be 90% or maybe 85%. They win a social victory and like a marketing victory much earlier at even 20 or 25%. But to actually stop, like to have the relay policy make it significantly difficult for miners, they need to be like an overwhelming majority of the network, really. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't like their odds in that sense. Like, we're really going to see things kick off probably before it gets anywhere near that level anyway. And we have some clips to this effect from Matthew Cratter, who's also one of the big Knots shillers, talking about the Bitcoin Core situation from this week. So let's have a listen to these two little snippets.
In the process, I got very used to answering beginner questions like, does Bitcoin Core control Bitcoin? That was always a common question. My answer at the time, no, of course not. Bitcoin Core can't control Bitcoin, because if they were to go rogue or start doing stupid things or get taken over by the CIA or whatever, Bitcoiners could always run different node software. Now, that's a good answer and a true answer, but it never occurred to me that the day would come when we might actually need to put this hypothesis to the test. And that hypothesis, that day, has obviously come now. Bitcoin Core has different devs with different opinions about everything. So I don't want to paint the whole organization as malicious. That would not be fair. I think there are certainly malicious devs at Core, but there are also some good people and also unfortunately, lots of organizational inertia, plus the natural human tendency to close ranks and protect your own when attacked from the outside. But I think something has clearly gone really, really wrong at Core over the past 2 years, really since the Taproot exploit and the beginning of inscriptions and spam in 2023, and then especially recently in 2025. Culture has always been anti-spam, and I was in particularly talking about Bitcoin Core in this video. So Bitcoin is decentralized only to the degree that node runners are actually willing to switch node software when Bitcoin Core starts to go rogue. If Bitcoiners are not willing to switch node software, then Bitcoin really is just a centralized project controlled by Bitcoin Core. And Bitcoin will change whenever Core, or the people who pay or exert social influence on Core devs, Bitcoin will change whatever Core wants it to. So you can ask me again in 6 months, and I'll tell you how decentralized I think Bitcoin really is, as we see after we've seen how this is going to play out over those next 6 months. If Bitcoin node runners don't rise up in great numbers and band together to fight spam, which serves Bitcoin node runners no beneficial purpose, only serves a purpose for malicious miners and crypto VCs. If Bitcoin node runners don't rise up in great numbers and band together in this battle, then we will know that Bitcoin Core is like the CDC for most Bitcoiners, and that Bitcoiners are happy to just trust the science, trust the experts. And that'd be a really sad thing to see.
So there we have it. They've really got to the bottom of the issue. Of course, the BCH told them since forever they could have just read hijacking Bitcoin. And of course, Matthew Crowder has made tons of videos saying how stupid the big blockers were. And even in that video, if you listen to the full thing, he's talking about, I don't want to hear your altcoin suggested solution. You don't have the solution. You're just shitcoiners or whatever. But regardless, they have fully figured it out that Bitcoin Core is basically in control. And if they can't prove that they can exert influence to counteract that, then BTC is just a centralized project controlled by whoever is calling the shots there. So they're now fully on board with all of that messaging and so forth. But I was fascinated that he said he set a 6-month timeline, because that's the key to gaslighting. The solution is have a deadline, and then once that deadline passes, don't put up with it anymore. You know, you've got to make some serious moves to just stop being strung along inevitably. And if he has decided for himself that it's a 6 months timeline, then we're going to see by the end of the year, we've got to see something happen. We've got to see them either try a split. We've got to see whether they can wrest control back with the filters. We've got to see if the PR gets merged. But it seems like by the end of 2025, we're going to kind of get an answer, at least if he sticks to his self-imposed timeline, and if that's indicative of, he has a pretty large following, so if that's indicative of their side of the argument, that's going to be super fascinating. What do you make of that, Kuldeep?
Well, as they say, Bitcoin is not democracy. So it doesn't matter how many followers this guy has. They'll do what they want to do. You know, if anything, if history might not repeat itself, it definitely rhymes.
Yes.
So it's rhyming right now.
It might not continue. You know, that's why I find it so fascinating. Is 6 months is a really interesting time window to see if they can do anything different, because again, it just maps onto the big blockers, carried on for a certain, and got to a certain point at which it was like, this is not gonna work. Like, we have to do something different. And that's where there was the split to BCH, and then there was SegWit, which was proposed and then collapsed in November, right at the end of the year in 2017, right? So it's all, again, like you say, it's just rhyming. we'll see. This time, will it be that the laser eye node runners of knots can come back to gloriously reclaim their digital gold, or will they also be the ones starting 2026 behind the 8 ball, having in a mess, having to figure out whether they want to split off into a new chain or whether they've just got to put up with it or whatever. Like, the meltdown could be tremendous if actually 10% of the organic node runner community or more just goes ballistic as they discover that they've been hoaxed all at once. That could be crazy. But I'm looking forward to it. And we've got a quick little meme of the week here, which is just showing that they've started making memes about the Bitcoin Chaincode client, because they noticed that several of the Bitcoin Core developers are on the payroll of this company called Chaincode, which is literally exactly the same as when the big blockers told them, look at all these Blockstream people that are basically calling the shots. But apparently that was just a conspiracy theory and never to be taken seriously. But now they've started realizing that Chaincode, which is essentially the same thing, is just, rebranded. It's a different company, but I'm sure the money and the power players are basically the same behind the scenes. Now they've started to figure that out. Okay. All right. We've been running a little over time, I think, here. So we've got to kind of wrap things up. But Kuldeep, you've got a message to the community, as we always give people on the show. What do you think the Bitcoin Cash community needs to hear?
So I wrote a piece for it because I wanted it to be word by word.
Oh, amazing. I think this is the first prepared message we've ever had, possibly. People just freestyle it, but an address.
Oh, shit. Like, you have high expectations from me. Okay, I think, I'm an anime lover. So this is a reference to Naruto. All right, so this feels like when, there's a villain in Naruto. There's a group called Akatsuki, and there's a villain called Pain. So that guy just comes in and destroys the entire village. How it feels like right now for BCH is like in that village, everybody starts to rebuild it. I wrote like everybody rebuilds the village with everything they have. Everyone believes and knows that their efforts matter. It feels the same in BCH. Everyone is doing the best they can and keep uplifting each other. So we have two examples, Flipstarter and FundMeter Cash. We see it almost every week that some project gets funded just because it must be, right? So that's what I feel about the community. We are going in a very good direction. I always feel positive whenever I open chats. So, that's a good part. And the second part of my message is like, in my opinion, I think we need investor funding rather than focusing on marketing. Like, I mean, why I'm giving a comparison is because since whenever we have investor funding anywhere, in even the direct example is Solana, right? As soon as there is investor funding, because there's so many applications that are possible right now. So all we have to do is just show them that there is money to be made. It's right there. It's possible. All an investor cares about is that they want their investment back and some returns on top of it. Like apart from those investors who are, love BCH. Other than that, they don't. To be honest, I've seen it almost everywhere. People don't really hate BCH. They are not ignorant about it. They just don't see how they can make money out of it. Right. So in my personal opinion, I think we as a community need more companies to get funding somehow. I wish I was that guy who could, but I'm an engineer. So I don't have anybody with me who can, work with me or get funding, or there are so many other projects as there are. But to be honest, the primary focus for all, in my opinion, should be getting outside funding into different projects any way they can, because I think so many people can build like billions of dollars worth of products right there. Like for example, BitCANN is direct competition with ENS, right? And ENS is already $1 billion system. There are so $1 billion worth of money has already exchanged hands. Imagine that happening in any of the in many applications on BCH, we would just skyrocket. So many people don't care about like what they think about BCH. As soon as they start hearing about it, that's the end of it. They right now they have formed opinion based on who is talking about what. And as soon as we move to that state where we have funding, we have projects that are getting funds from somewhere, and there's a pretty good portion that is just going out there for marketing. Like, right, one example would be Michael Saylor, right? Like, that guy doesn't have that level of understanding of Bitcoin. All he's doing is just manipulating it, but everybody is listening to him. That's the primary part. Why? Because his team has got something, some level of marketing that he is doing. That's why he's able to achieve that level of visibility, right? I think we might be able to replicate the same thing through funding. That's it.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense to me. Bring in the investment money, and then that incentivizes them to take care of putting the message out there, and they'll spend their own money on that to benefit their investments. That definitely makes sense. And yeah, I think it's something we can do a lot better as a community. And I like your analogy about rebuilding the village, because it comes back to everybody's on a mission. Everybody has in their mind how it was and how great it could be again, and then they just get to work. And you're right. I feel like BCH does have that sentiment at the moment, and I love how harmonious everyone is and the amount of good work. Like you said, it is crazy actually how much things are getting funded on FundMe, basically every week, because people can see like people are putting in work, and so other people are willing to fund it. And that's just it. The money, it's like there's something like more than 750 BCH I think has now gone through FundMe. That's actually a pretty good amount of money, and that only just ramps up over time. So yeah, it's great, really great to see. Okay, speaking of the FundMe, we've got the FundMe campaign. I didn't update the slide, but it's actually closed. I put in a little bit of funding to just get it over the line, because I thought, look, let's just close off this batch of episodes. We're at 152, and it's going to be 155 soon enough. So this is our final list of contributors here. Majamali Marcelo, Funding Father, Molecular, the show we love, at Cash Stamps, BCH for the win, Cash Dragon, RealBitcoin.cash, Murray Store, great work, Burnin a Cattle, Bitcoin is Cash, Milton Friedman, Emergent Reasons, Stay Grounded, Go Big, Canach, BCH is the Michael Jordan of crypto, Yeah Beer, Keep Building while BBC fights and stagnates, the stage is set for medium of exchange plus store of value, must obsolete ETH first, Purely peer.cash, discover the thrill of quest hunting, find hidden cash drops, and collect BCH. And Dorimus, keep building, biddling. You have full support from many. Thank you to our donators and our patrons, Ricky and HP, and our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. Start guide, FAQ, and links are at bitcoincashpodcast.com. If you're new, listen to episode 85. Try Selene Wallet at Selene.cash. Final shout outs, and where can people find more of you, Kuldeep?
Mostly on Telegram and Twitter. That's the only place where anybody can find me. I don't use social media.
And Bitcoin Cash research, eh?
Yeah, I'll even right now I have a tab open.
All right, look out for him there. The links will be in the description. Any special shout outs you want to give to anyone individually in the ecosystem or in your life?
There's so many people, like everybody, to be honest. If I name someone, it's like I'm missing out on someone just because I wasn't able to thought about it.
Yes.
But everybody. I mean, because I read chats all the time. It's just that I'm not like very vocal. But so much of the thought process in my mind just comes directly from the chat and Bitcoin Cash research. Right?
Yes.
Thankful to everybody who contributes there.
Amazing. Jet, any shout outs? Nope. And I'll double down. I think your shout out is great. Everyone who's talking away in Telegram and everyone who is on Bitcoin Cash research and on Twitter to a certain extent, it's great. It's great. The community is very positive. I love seeing all the ideas that are flowing around, and the pace of change ramping up at the protocol level is is crazy, because that's the precursor. That's like the start of the tsunami, you know, as that then flows into the tooling, and then that's going to flow into the app devs. And we're just going to see this huge explosion of BCH related products and stuff. Like my hands are already absolutely overburdened with all the things that I could possibly, you know, be building and doing at once. And that's just opportunity that's going to be attractive to people, and they're going to flood into the ecosystem. And like the podcast numbers are always constantly ticking up, and that's exponential, right? So I can just see we're in such a good position, and BCH is great. Okay, and last time I called it the Free Ross song, but it's actually the Free Roger song, even though the album artwork was a picture of Ross, which was why I got it wrong. But absolute banger from Smooth Operator. Let's go out with that. Free Roger.
Release Roger from prison. Hurry up, bro, soon to be all season. Peer cash, that was the vision, but they locked them up cause they fear his mission. Dog Bitcoin Jesus, straight from the start. 2011, spreading the spark. Told him the bank's gon' keep y'all in chains. Now he's in a cell where McAfee's name remains. Regulators hate when the people got power, so they set traps, watch them all turn sour. Spain got them locked, extradition in sight. For what, selling freedom? Nah, that ain't right. That they hate BCH cause it moves too fast. Still middleman fees the Wall Street tax. Now they got them shackled, trying to shut them down, but the blockchain's still running underground. To Donald, release Roger from prison. Hurry up, bro, soon to be all season. Peer cash, that was the vision, but they locked them up cause they fear his mission. The boss can't hold a decentralized mind. The state wanna break him, but they way behind. 2024, it's a brand new race. Fiat's burning, they trying to save face. Inflation robbing every man and his soul. Meanwhile, BCH still playing his role. They print trillions, stealing your wealth, while Roger sitting in a cell by himself. The elites want control, they don't want you free. That's why they took them same thing they did to McAfee. They silenced the ones who exposed the game, but Bitcoin Cash still carry his name.
Authorities in Spain have detained Roger for U.S. officials seeking extradition for alleged tax crimes. The same facility where John McAfee was found dead in 2021. Some say this is politically motivated, but boom, beat drops again.
To Donald, release Roger from prison. Hurry up, bro, soon to be all season. Peer cash, that was the vision, but they locked them up cause they fear his mission. They scared of the truth, they scared of the chain, but BCH gon' break through the pain. Freedom ain't free, the war ain't done. They took Roger down, but the people ain't won. Roger, free Roger, free Roger, free Roger. Coin, cash is freedom. Roger, free Roger, free Roger, free Roger. Coin, cash is freedom. In the tyranny. Big Don already.